Sharon Brown and Alexandra Rains of Bonafide recently showed both timing and courage, launching a first-of-its-kind innovation by merging HPP juices with bone broth to create drinkable veggies. Now, this is a product that's now spreading to national distribution in Whole Foods, and they're here to tell us the story of how they did it. Please welcome Sharon Brown, Alexandra Rains.
Hi, friends. How are you all? Good. I'm going to just set these down. So we're the last speakers of the day. Two ways to look at that. Either you're all too tired to listen, so they put us last, or like at a rock concert, we're like the headliners, and that we come on last, and you're the reason that we're the reason that you're here, and so we're going to go with that, and hopefully at the end you all put up big lighters and ask for an encore. So we'll go with the latter. So innovation, that's what we're here to talk about. We're excited, really excited to be a part of BevNet. Thanks for asking us to come and speak. As founders of the original Real Bone Broth Company, we are so excited that we were asked to speak, and it warms our hearts because beverage bone broth really wasn't something that was a thing 10 years ago. The concept and the idea of drinking bone broth as a beverage wasn't happening. And so we are excited to be here and to be a part of your tribe, so to speak. So allow me to tell you my story before we get into the subject. And I want to talk about our story before we get into innovation. And I know that everybody has a story, but I believe that the story can be key for you in the mind shift that we need in the industry in the area of innovation. So here's a picture of our little family. Part of it. The one in the middle, the tall one there, is my son Blake. And 18 years ago, Blake was born, healthy baby, 6 months old, developed his first sinus infection. Took him to the doctor, put him on a round of antibiotics, and he stayed on a round of antibiotics until he was the age of 6 years old. So he was a disaster. He had sinus infections, ear infections, respiratory infections. He was on albuterol, was on breathing treatments. And I went to a back-to-school night about 12 years ago. And the teacher said to me, she kind of patted me on the shoulder, and she said, just so you know, be ready to go down the road of ADD, because Blake has all the signs of it, and that's where you're heading. So I went home that night, and I pulled him out of school, decided I wasn't going to put him back in school, and I was going to try to heal him a different way than I had been doing, which was the conventional medicine route. So wasn't a lot of information on the internet 13, 12 years ago, but I came across this concept of healing through food rather than medicine. And so that's what I did. I went to my pantry, I threw everything out, I shopped on the outside aisles of the grocery store and in the frozen aisle, and I introduced copious amounts of bone broth. It was a new concept to me back then, 12 years ago, but it was an age-old concept for thousands of people across the world. And so I came across this concept of bone broth healing the mucosal lining of the gut. 85% of the immune system is in the gut, so I knew that that's where we needed to start. So I used copious amounts in everything that I cooked for him. Even the homemade waffles that I made for him, I would sneak in bone broth. And he never knew it. And so 3 months went by, 6 months went by, 9 months went by, and he was healed through food. And so that prompted me to go back to school. I had a degree in business. I went back to school and got my nutrition degree. And I opened a nutrition practice in Del Mar, California. My niece, who I helped raise, became interested in nutrition, and she was a CrossFit coach. And so she opened a practice in Orange County. And the biggest challenge for us with our clients was to get them to make their own bone broth. And we would say to them, it's the easiest thing in the world. You take bones, Celtic sea salt, throw it in a pot, cook it 24 to 48 hours, but nobody would do it. Well, there wasn't one on the market that met our standards. So we approached my husband, who was a chef. He had been in the restaurant business, and we asked him to make bone broth for just our clients in our practice. And he said, no way, I'm not doing this. I want nothing to do with it. And we begged him. Happy wife is a happy life. And so he started making the bone broth just for our practices. And we would sell out every day in our practice of the bone broth. And then a couple of years ago, Good Morning America featured bone broth and Marco from Brodo as this new concept of a new superfood, right? And that month, we sold 10,000 units online. And we thought, okay, we're kind of onto something here. So I tell you that story because I think with any type of really good innovation, there has to be a need. So our bone broth was created out of a need for a real product that acted as medicine for our patients. So we're going to argue today that it always, always starts with a need. And I'm going to get onto that topic of a need in just a second. But I want to stop here and challenge you as food companies and executives and the powers that be behind these big food companies. And I want you to really understand that your consumer and your clientele and the people that are drinking and eating your products and driving your products are more educated in the area of health than any other time in history. So I just want to repeat that again. Your consumer, the people that are drinking your products, are more educated than any other time in history. Thanks to food bloggers, alternative care practitioners, mommy bloggers, innovative food companies that are run by nutritionists, consumers are demanding more from their food. They want food and drink with a purpose. So they want products that are ethically sourced. They want products that are locally sourced. And most importantly, they want products that are purposeful in the area of health and wellness. So gone are the days that you can market crap, right? So you can't put a pretty package on today's consumer shelf and see it fly off the shelf because consumers nowadays read labels and they want purpose. So if you take anything away from today, take that with you. You're going to have to up your game in the area of innovation. And it all starts with a need, not a laboratory. And that's where we really want to challenge you. So back to need. Recently, I received an email from a product innovation company. The email stated, hey, we could provide you with award-winning innovation for our company. And then they listed a host of products that they have created. And to be honest, I had no idea that companies still existed like this today. In my naivety, I thought we were past this type of incubator innovation. The problem that I see with this type of particular innovation is that consumers are demanding more from the products that they're consuming. So I don't want to rip any beverage category because we're all family members here, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to move to the gluten category for a minute. So sales of gluten-free products are down, and we can ask ourselves, is it because the market is saturated? Some of you might say yes. Is it because gluten-free products are a fad? Some of you might say yes. However, I would argue that the reason why gluten-free products sales are down is because many of the products that are gluten-free on the market are what we refer to in our nutrition practice as crap products, meaning you've taken out the gluten, but you've loaded the product with a bunch of crap, and in turn, the consumer ends up feeling like crap. Here are the list of ingredients in just a standard gluten-free product. You know, many of them you can't even pronounce. And the only thing that this product offers to the consumer is that after eating a few handfuls, they're going to feel like a puffed up rice cake from all the crap that's in the product, right? So does the market need another crap-filled gluten cracker? Probably not. But does it need a cracker that's gluten-free, that's actually good for you and promotes wellness? Yes, which is why brands like Simple Mills are killing it in the cracker space. Okay, so with our bone broth, our new drinkable veggie line, these products were created out of a need, and a need for a consumer to have this real bone broth cooked 24-hour traditional way, using the bones of the animal, no meat, no shelf stabilization, by putting this, healing elixir into some gross Tetra Pak, or even worse, adding lactic acid or citric acid, which we were told to do, and make it shelf stable. We knew that there was a need for real food, just the way it was made at home, keeping it simple, just the way the consumer makes it at home. Thus, Bonafide Provisions was born, and now it's the #1 selling bone broth in the nation in the frozen set nationwide. But getting there wasn't easy, right? So we received a lot of no's from the Suits of the world and the Ties of the world and the innovators and the buyers. And our first no came when we were told not to put it into the frozen aisle. Don't put broth in the frozen aisle, we were told. Shoppers find their broth on the grocery store aisle, we were told. However, we fought back hard on this one, and we explained that when a shopper makes their own broth at home, the natural place to store their 10 quarts of broth is in the freezer at home, unless you're like Bill Weiland and then you drink the 10 quarts in one day. But most consumers aren't like him. So naturally, that is where they should find their broth. We would say right in the frozen aisle. So for 3 years, we were told no. And for 3 years, we didn't budge. And our contention was that there was a need for this product, and it was less about getting the consumer to go into the frozen aisle and more about convincing the grocery stores that they had it wrong. And in our opinion, they had it all wrong. So broth and soup, they should be frozen just like at home when you make big batches. The idea of broth that sits on a shelf for 2 years is just simply gross to true brothers. So our frozen bone broth is now, as I said, one of the top frozen products in the nation out of the frozen set in the natural channel, which is really exciting for us because we fought hard. So there was a need, we filled it, and we fought hard. So when you're creating a new product, we challenge you to always ask, is there a need? And the product should always start at that point. And then we also challenge you to find a nutritionist or find an alternative care practitioner or a mommy blogger and add them onto your R&D team. They know what the needs are out there. They know what their patients want. They know what their followers want. And when you do that, you're going to be on to something big with all of these millennials and the people who are label readers now. So next I want to talk about really quickly about category correction. If you look at the products in the market that are doing it all wrong, we suggest that you come up with a solution, okay? So some of you call it category disruption, but Alexandra and I call it one step further. We call it actually category correction. And this is the concept that led us to create drinkable veggies. We saw that the juice category was ripe for correction. And we knew that because we worked with thousands of people across the country, helping them heal through health, okay? I had a nutrition practice. I had a 4-month wait list to get into to work with me so that I can help you heal through food. It was a great, thriving practice, and one of the first questions I always had was, what can I drink? And they would bring in their, whatever they were drinking that day, and 80% of the time we would give a no, you can't drink that. So I want to share the story of the drinkable veggie line, and I know that you're not here to just hear about like Bonafide provisions and our lines of products, but I'm hoping that you can take away with our example. And then apply it when you go into the area of innovation. So juice, the concept of juice, it's one of the first beverages that we give our babies after mother's milk. Juice, it's used to sweeten up cocktails, right? Juice, back in the 1960s, was touted via V8 as the way to get your vegetables in. However, juice sales are down. And it's because shoppers are more educated and they are realizing that sugar and fruit sugar isn't good for you. And all the cleanses and all the juicings that they've been doing for the last 8 to 10 years have left them feeling, well, like, crap. So if I could count the number of women that would come into my office that were into these major, major kale juices, okay? They'd come in and they would say, but I'm healthy, but I'm sick. And we would kind of look at their food plan and we would see that they were juicing copious amounts of kale juice and adding in, 3 apples to be able to gag the kale juice down, right? So what you would end up with was a woman with thyroiditis because thyroid doesn't like kale at that levels. And then the body doesn't like 3 apples in one little juice drink. And so you become sick and you become fatter. And so our innovation with the drinkable veggies came out of a need and then a category correction. So Alex is gonna take it from here. Am I gonna do your little thingy here?
If you can you handle it?
Yeah.
You just have to click the button, so I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay, so when we looked at this juice category, we found that there is an opportunity for correction here. And we asked ourselves, okay, we know we have a need. We know that when we talk to our clients and we're like, listen, you can't drink something that has 32 grams of sugar in one serving, but we're going to find something that you can drink. We knew there was a need, and we knew that there was something that was missing. And so, we were like, we have the remedy. You just put vegetables and you put bone broth, and then you don't need to put the pear juice and the apple juice to sweeten it up to make it palatable, because the bone broth is what actually does that. So while it's a new concept, it's actually an improvement upon an existing concept. And Sharon touched on it briefly, V8. I mean, we all know V8. It's been around, I'm pretty sure, since before I was born. So it's been around for a long time, and it's a $300 million category that's seen declining sales over the last 3 to 4 years. And so we saw this and we thought, okay, this is our time for category correction. This is where we can do it. So our drinkable veggies really are first of its kind. We've taken whole vegetables, we either roast them, we blanch them, or they're raw, and we puree them down and we add our bone broth to them. So we don't use concentrates, we don't use juices, we literally take whole vegetables. So you're getting all of that good fiber, and you're also getting the collagen protein from the bone broth. Again, we're not adding any stevia, we're not adding any fruit juice, we're not adding any pear juice to make it palatable. It's really the bone broth that ties all of it together, while allowing the flavor profile of the vegetables to shine through. So it really is like a 21st century V8. We've upgraded it to this nutrient-dense beverage. So along with that comes, like I said, the collagen protein. It really appeals to the paleo community, the Whole30 community, the deep nutrition users. They've been waiting for something like this. For those of you who have done Whole30, is there anyone here who's done Whole30? I see a couple heads, yeah. You really can't drink a whole lot. It's kind of water, black coffee, tea. I see someone like, yes, that's true. So these really were our answer to those users. And the original formulas were literally made in our family kitchen. We had one blender, and so very humble beginnings, but that's kind of our innovation style. And so in that process, we created these beverages, and we took them to Expo West this year, and we won Best New Beverage. And so we thought, okay, we thought it was a good idea, and other people are thinking this is a good idea. We must be really onto something, and innovation must be evolving. So we've created this amazing innovation. It meets a need. It's correcting a sagging category, but now you have to implement it. And so therein lies some of the challenges, the implementation of innovation. So you can create a great product, it's groundbreaking, it tastes good, people love it, but it doesn't stop there. And that's actually where it starts. You now have to implement your innovation. You have to execute your idea successfully at multiple levels. You have to manage expectations among retailers, among buyers, among users, with your brokers. And it's all done through education. So since we're at BevNet, let's talk about functional beverages. Let's say a well-performing SKU turns 12 units per day. Okay, we won't even talk about price. Let's just say they turn 12 units per day. Now let's look at our drinkable veggies who maybe turn 8 units per day. At face value, you're going to say that the 12 units are outperforming the 8 units, right? But are they really? Because if we look at revenue, our 8 units are actually bringing in more money than the 12 units that are being sold. Less units, same revenue. And so here's where the challenge lies and education begins, because so many store buyers will only look at unit turns when they're reordering. They're like, oh, well, this didn't turn. But you're actually generating more revenue from less units of our product than 12 units of another. So what really needs to be focused on instead of unit turns is revenue. And when you actually break it down even further into labor costs and managing stock and packing out cases, the profit margins are larger and the unit sales actually become a little bit irrelevant. But category managers are hesitant because they're focused on unit turns at lower prices. Oh, we're already out of time. Yep. Am I way over? That's okay. I'm going to wrap it up here. All right. So let's talk about just an example of how this happens outside of the beverage category. You take grain-free tortillas that are wildly popular. $8.99 a package compared to a $2.99 shelf-stable package. They're not going to sell 15 units per day like a shelf-stable would, but they're actually generating more revenue selling half the units. So it's really just an education process at the retail level and managing expectations that a new niche product like this isn't going to come in and right away, blow 15 units out per day. But it will get there eventually with education of the users, education of the retailers, and education just really starting at the tables of grocery buyers. So how do you manage expectation? Education. We're relational people. We like to relate things to each other. Yeah, oh, okay, good. And so we like patterns. We like to see, well, this is like this. It helps me to better understand it. We didn't want to be grouped as a drinkable soup. We didn't want to be grouped as a drinkable bone broth because really it's so much more than that. So we had to educate starting at the buyer's table in retail. We had to tell them, listen, it's going to be next to these items, but it's not these items. It's a drinkable veggie. It's a vegetable juice reinvented, a 21st century V8. And we had to explain that we were going deep with targeting our demographics instead of wide. We were targeting the paleo people, the Whole30 followers, the deep nutrition users, and that by building those deep roots, we would have wide branches later. And so that if they could just hold on with us as we built that awareness, these products would eventually become like kombucha. We love to use that as an example. I remember 8 years ago sitting in front of a nutrition client, and she said, it comes from a mushroom. And I was like, yeah, no, it's good for you. It tastes good. It's going to be great. But kombucha now is a $1.6 billion category, but it took some education in the beginning to grow the innovation. And so that's really kind of where we're at with drinkable veggies, is it's a brand new product. It's something that has to be educated upon, but the users are ready for it. The consumers are ready for it. And so I think education is the way that we're really going to make this product successful at all levels: retail, users, brokers, field marketing, demos. You got to demo these products. It's all about education. Yeah, we're good.
Guys, best of luck growing the branches. To all of you, best of luck growing the branches. Now we're going to see which product is the fruit of the new Beverage Showdown. Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having us.